On June 12th, the United States government dropped a bomb on the AI world. They banned Claude Fable 5, Anthropic's most powerful model, for every foreign national on the planet. Not just people outside America, foreigners working inside the US, foreigners working at Anthropic itself. The model was cut off, gone. The smartest AI most people had ever used, locked behind an export control directive. 10 days later, a small startup in Tokyo raised its hand and said, "We don't need your model." And then their 7 billion parameter Conductor, a model so small it could run on a laptop, proceeded to humiliate Claude Fable 5 at its own game. Blindfold chess, mechanical engineering, writing code that actually works. The demos are not subtle, they are not close. In several categories, this tiny Japanese orchestrator didn't just match the trillion parameter giants, it walked past them while they crashed into walls. This is the story of Sakana Fugu Ultra. And if you think this is just another new model beats old model cycle, you're missing what is actually happening here. This is not about parameters. This is about the death of the single model era. Let me back up. Sakana AI is not some random startup that appeared out of nowhere. It was founded in Tokyo in August 2023 by two people you should know about. David Ha, former head of Google Brain's Tokyo research team, and Lion Jones, the fifth author on the 2017 paper, Attention is All You Need. That is the paper that invented the transformer architecture, the T in GPT, the T in ChatGPT, the foundation of every major AI model running today. One of the people who literally wrote the blueprint for modern AI is now building Japan's answer to Silicon Valley. The company raised $135 million at a $2.65 billion valuation in late 2025. It is now Japan's most valuable private startup. And their whole philosophy, from day one, has been different from everyone else. While OpenAI and Anthropic and Google have been in an arms race to build bigger and bigger single models, more parameters, more data, more compute, Sakana has been asking a different question. What if you don't need a bigger model? What if you just need a smarter way to use the models that already exist? Their research has been built around nature-inspired ideas: evolution, swarms, collective intelligence. The name Sakana means fish in Japanese. Their branding is built around schools of fish working together. And Fugu, the puffer fish, is the animal that inflates itself when threatened. The metaphor is clear. When the competition gets big, Fugu gets bigger. But not by growing, by orchestrating. Here is what Fugu Ultra actually is. It is not a traditional large language model. It is a 7 billion parameter reinforcement learning trained conductor. That is it, 7 billion parameters. For context, the models it competes against are estimated to be in the hundreds of billions, possibly over a trillion. Fugu Ultra is smaller than some models people run on their gaming PCs. What it does is radically different. When you send a query to Fugu, it does not generate a response from its own weights. Instead, it dynamically decides which frontier models to call: GPT 5.5, Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini 3.1 Pro, what role each should play, what sequence they should work in, how they should debate each other, critique each other, verify each other's outputs. It is an intelligent manager, an AI that runs a team of AIs. This is built on two papers that Sakana published at ICLR 2026, Trinity and Conductor. Trinity handles the multi-agent coordination structure. Conductor handles the learned routing, deciding which model to call, when, and for what. Together, they form a system that treats orchestration itself as the core capability. The small model doesn't need to know everything. It needs to know who to ask. You talk to a single API endpoint, you get an OpenAI-compatible interface. Behind the scenes, a swarm of frontier models is being assembled, assigned roles, and coordinated in real time. And the results speak for themselves. Let me show you the demos, because this is where things get genuinely impressive. Sakana published a series of tasks that are specifically designed to break single models, not benchmarks on a leaderboard. Actual functional tests that require sustained reasoning, memory, and multi-step planning. First, blindfold chess. Fugu Ultra played multiple full games of chess without ever seeing the board, maintaining perfect board state entirely in memory. It beat a 2100 rated Stockfish engine. Other frontier models didn't just lose, they crashed. By move 15, they had forgotten where pieces were, made illegal moves, or simply gave up. Fugu sustained its internal state across entire games. Second, a Rubik's Cube solver. Fugu was asked to write a program that solves any scrambled cube efficiently. It produced a solver that handled all 300 test scrambles with better average move counts than the baselines. Some of the frontier models produced solvers that crashed on certain scrambles, or got stuck in infinite loops, or generated solutions twice as long. Fugu's orchestrator approach meant it could verify its own code, test it, and iterate. Third, and this one is wild, a mechanical CAD design. Fugu was asked to design a mechanical iris, the kind of aperture mechanism you see in camera lenses, with overlapping blades that open and close. This requires understanding physical constraints, linkage geometry, collision detection. Single models failed repeatedly. They produced designs where blades clipped through each other, where the mechanism jammed, where the physics simply didn't work. Fugu's multi-agent approach, one agent designing, another verifying, another stress testing the constraints, produced a functional mechanical iris. This is not a marginal improvement. This is a different category of capability. Single models are pattern matchers. They predict the next token. They do not verify their own outputs unless you explicitly ask them to, and even then, the same model that made the mistake is the one checking for it. Fugu's architecture solves this at the system level. Error checking is not a feature, it is baked into the architecture. Now the controversy, and you should know about this because it is everywhere on Hacker News and X. Fugu is just a wrapper. It's not a real model. They're just calling Claude and GPT behind the scenes and charging you for routing. There is some truth to this. Fugu does call other companies models. It is, in a literal sense, an orchestration layer. But calling it just a wrapper misses the point so completely that it is almost dishonest. A conductor does not play every instrument in the orchestra. That does not mean the conductor is useless. The conductor decides who plays what, when, how loud, when to come in, when to stop. A great conductor makes an orchestra better than the sum of its parts. A bad conductor ruins the best musicians in the world. Fugu is the conductor, and the evidence suggests it is a very good one. There is also a more practical rebuttal to the just a wrapper criticism. If it was easy, everyone would do it. If you could just duct tape a few API calls together and beat Fable 5 on LiveCodeBench by 4 points, someone would have done it already. The fact that Sakana's ICLR papers described learned orchestration, not hard-coded rules, not simple majority voting, but reinforcement learning trained coordination strategies, tells you there is real research here. The conductor is trained. It learns which models to trust for which tasks. It learns when to overrule. It learns when to bring in a second opinion. There is also a geopolitical dimension to this story that you cannot ignore. Claude Fable 5 was banned on June 12th because the US government classified its capabilities as a national security risk. The model was deemed too powerful to be accessed by foreign nationals, including foreign employees of Anthropic itself. The message from Washington was clear. The most advanced AI belongs to America, and America alone. Fugu Ultra launched on June 22nd, 10 days later, with a pricing page that undercuts Fable 5 by 50%. $5 per million input tokens versus 10, $30 per million output versus 50. And it is available to everyone. No export controls, no nationality restrictions, a model pool that explicitly excludes Fable 5 and Mythos 5, so there is no dependency on the very models the US is trying to lock down. Sakana's press release says it directly. Frontier capability without the risk of export controls. That is not subtle. That is a declaration. What we are watching is the beginning of AI multipolarity. The assumption that the most advanced AI will always come from a handful of American labs. That assumption is cracking. Not because someone else built a bigger model, but because someone else built a smarter system. The numbers, for anyone keeping score. Fugu Ultra scored 93.2 on LiveCodeBench. Fable 5 scored 89.8. On GPQA Diamond, a graduate-level science reasoning benchmark, Fugu Ultra hit 95.1. On SPOE Pro, the software engineering benchmark, Fugu Ultra is at 54.2, essentially at parity with Fable. And it did all of this without training a single model larger than 7 billion parameters. There is a deeper lesson here. For the past 3 years, the AI industry has operated on a single assumption. Scale is everything. more data, more compute, more parameters. The entire business model of companies like OpenAI and Anthropic is built on the belief that the next breakthrough will come from a bigger training run, a larger cluster, a more expensive model. Fugu challenges that assumption at its foundation. It says, you do not need a bigger model. You need a smarter way to use the models you already have. Orchestration beats scale. Whether that holds up across every domain remains to be seen. Fugu Ultra is 1 day old as I record this. The independent evaluations are just beginning. There will be edge cases. There will be failures. Every new technology goes through a hype cycle followed by a correction. But the trajectory is real, and the demos are public. If a 7 billion parameter model can beat trillion parameter models by being a better conductor, then the era of bigger is better is over. Not dying, over. The next frontier is not about building a smarter brain. It is about building a better team. And the country that figures this out first, whether that is Japan or China or Europe, or a lab we have not heard of yet, will not need America's permission to compete at the frontier. That is what the Fable 5 ban accidentally proved. Locking down the model didn't secure American dominance. It just created the market for an alternative. Sakana Fugu is that alternative. And if the demos hold up in the real world, this tiny fish from Tokyo just changed the direction of artificial intelligence.